The legendary Mr. Walt Disney once said, whatever you do, do it well. Do it so well that when people see you do it, they will want to come back and see you do it again. And they will want to bring others and show them how well you do it. Some food for thought. Ladies and gents, we're about to move to our first panel discussion, and leading the pack, I would like to call on all the way from Dry Land Event Management, even though so that the land isn't always that dry because they do a lot of wet events also. Let's welcome on stage our chair for this panel discussion, Mr. Bernard Leroux. He's the Chief Operating Officer, Dry Land Event Management. Bernard Leroux.
Good morning. Hi there, thanks. Well, I'd like to call up the rest of the panelists. You can come join me if that's all right with you. I was told to sit down, but I really struggle with that, so I'm going to stand for the first bit at least. But before we start, just briefly, I think on behalf of a lot of people that is here today, I'd just like to thank Denver, Mushfika, and Johan, and the whole department and their team for what they've been doing, not only from 2015, but even before that. It's always good to know that you've got somebody in the department where you can physically actually pick up the phone and phone them to ask them for help, assistance. Obviously, it's not always just about money. We'd like to think that. But there's a lot of other things that they do like today. I mean, it's an absolute privilege to stand here and look across the room, and I see a lot of familiar faces and a lot of new ones, hopefully a lot of sponsors with budgets that they want to spend. But it's just great having you here. But first of all, please help me to thank the Denver, Mushfika, Johan, and the whole department for the work that they've been doing. I nearly said dying. I didn't mean that. Doing. All right. Just obviously, protocol is the key word today, so we'd like to stick to the program. When it comes to events, there's a lot of things that you need to bear in mind. Obviously, as you know, I'm from Dryland. We've got a bit of a portfolio of events. Fortunately, we could build a portfolio over the last 15 years that's got a bit of a national footprint. Most of our events is in this beautiful region of the Southern Cape, but we've also got a few events in Ceres, the Eastern Cape, Gauteng, and those have all been made possible, fortunately for us, through partnerships. And for this session, and even though Denver referred to that, I think that's the one word that we should take from this is partnerships. So when you look at a successful event, is there any other events organizers here that fight the battles with us? Many. If I could quickly ask, what would you see as a successful event? Just a keyword, successful events. Sold out, okay? Return customers. Sustainability. I'm going to hold on to that. I'll make a note. One more. Growth in numbers, yeah. All right, good. So, if I may, when we look at events, we like to think that they are successful when we make a difference in the communities that we serve. Whenever we go to some town or place, we'd like to leave something behind. We'd like to get the whole community involved, and once again, hats off to the department for getting all these local suppliers involved. Obviously, we want numbers. We want to make it work. You need numbers. You need a lot of people to take part. That's very important. We have to look at the environment. There's no way that we can present events if we don't look at the environment. So that's just in a nutshell. But it's not always that easy. So you can have a lot of numbers, but at the end of the day, there's this very important little document called a budget. When the event is done, you'll have to have a little bit of money in the bank account. Otherwise, it's not going to be financially viable. It's going to be a once-off or maybe twice, 2 events that you present. We have to make a bit of money, let's be honest. And that's not always that easy. And to do that, once again, I want to get back to partnerships. So partnerships means a lot of stakeholders. It's government, it's help, and it's assistance. But in this instance, it's also corporate sponsors. how we don't love corporate sponsors. Not a lot of them around. And when we sat around the table earlier, unfortunately, I was told that it's even becoming more difficult, Luntu.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, corporates are looking at these and they're thinking, yeah, we really have to make this work. It has to make sense to us as a corporate. So the battles that we've been fighting for the last 15 to 20 years are even going to become more difficult. So it has to make sense. So I don't have the answers, but apparently they do. So I've been joined by three very, very experienced panelists. We've got a bit of background from an events management perspective, and then we'll hopefully get some stories from the dark side of the corporate world from Luntu. So Delani Jooste is with us, and she's from Pakket Boerberg, and she'll be sharing a few stories with us. I'm not going to get into the detail. I'm going to leave that to them. After, I'm going to ask Philip Nkorongo from World Sport, also well-known events organizers, nationally and internationally, Philip.
Correct.
You know, if you think about the Volvo Ocean Race, that's one of their properties. And fortunately for us in the Knysna region, the annual sports festival in Knysna is also one of their properties. So a lot of experience there. So I'm curious to listen to what Philip's got to share with us today. And then last and definitely not least, Luntu's from Playmakers. And if you don't know Playmakers by now, just please rub shoulders with Luntu, because Playmakers is actually the activation company for the financial giant in Absa. So you think Premiership, Luntu?
Yeah.
You think Absa Cape Epic, and the biggest of them all, obviously, the Kaka and Ka. All right, so we'll also stick to our timeline. It's a massive clock up here, thanks for this. But I'm really looking forward to listening to these stories, to listening to what they've got to share. We've got a few various levels and aspects that we are going to focus on today. And then at the end of that all, we are going to open up to the floor, and please feel free to ask questions. Denver referred to robust conversations. It sounds very aggressive, but it's very important. Let's ask the questions. Let's assist each other to make events, not only in this region, but in South Africa, even more successful than it is at this stage. All right, because events obviously is a very big contributor to definitely this region's economy, with tourism and all the others. But we need to take hands and assist each other to make it even more successful. All right, so thank you for listening. Don't stop smiling, you look very serious. I'm going to try and sit down now, and I'm going to ask Delani to come and join me to share a few stories. Now Delani, the first time I met Delani actually was, I think, in 2015.
Yes.
I just saw the name, it was at the River Club. I wasn't sure what the venue's name was, but the River Club, I actually met Delani where she was pitching for this competition that other people will be pitching for, and she actually won that competition. And I think that probably, yeah, go for it. But late, if you're pitching today, you should have phoned her beforehand. She knows how to do it. But I think that's one of the things that assisted and helped them to now own, obviously, a very, very popular and successful event in Pakket Boerberg. I always say Boer Pakketberg, but it's Pakket Boerberg. Yeah, so we're curious to listen to what she's got to say, and I think let's finish with the panelists first, and then we ask the questions, if that's right. So remember to make a few notes if you want to ask some questions. All right, so thanks, Lani, over to you.
Thank you, Werner. Thank you for having us today. We are very happy to share our battle stories with you today, and hopefully some key learnings that you can take home with you. I just want to check the slide sorting equipment. There we go. So let's just see. I come from a very small town in the Western Cape, and it is called Pakketberg. So let's just see. Sorry, guys. The other one. Lovely. So up is back, down, forward for the rest of you. Great. So I come from a very small town in the Western Cape. It's called Pakketberg, and I stay on the mountain, and that's why they refer to it as Pakket Boerberg. And this year we are very grateful to actually celebrate the 10th year of our annual Pakket Boerberg Cycle Challenge and Trail Run. So we started out 10 years ago in this very small community, initiative from a local non-profit organization, with the goal to generate funds to make a difference in our community. And I'm happy to report that we've grown the event since its incubation 10 years ago from about 230 people taking part to almost 1,000 people making a note in their diary to come out to Pakket Boerberg or Pakket Boerberg, as the true Cape Townians refer to it as. The wonderful spin-off of that is that we actually managed to grow our event profile to include a stage race that we also have later in the year, and that was a wonderful opportunity to take on a new project with our community learning center that we actually want to erect and to help us focus on developing young adults and helping kids at school as well to create a better future for them. So very much a wonderful event, exclusive trail park of about 106 kilometers of single track, nice and technical stuff, but really focusing on making a difference in our community. But I'm not here to talk about that today, as I was 3 years ago. Today I'm here to tell you a little bit about how you actually get into the process of getting sponsorship. And I've broken it down to very practical steps that I wanted to share with you. Firstly, you think of this relationship that you are working with your sponsors as something between you and the event, or from an event organizer's perspective, with the sponsor. But I think it's very important to know that it's not only about you. It's also the community that relationship depends on and actually influences that we need to take into account. So when approaching those your potential sponsors, it's important to link that cause with your brand and your message so that you can show how you are actually making a difference in your community. The wonderful other spin-off is that by doing so and by creating events in your community, you're creating awareness about the causes that you are supporting in your community. And you actually get other contributions and opportunities to work with sponsors to build on projects like we have with building it out into developing a community learning center. So getting out there, focusing on that relationship and being aware of your community, making your sponsors aware of that and benefiting from those spin-offs are very much the first thing to take into account. Then, in preparation to go and see these potential sponsors, you have to be able to answer a couple of questions. And I'm going to take you through these questions for the rest of my presentation so that you are aware of the steps needed to be ready for that very important conversation. And remember I referred to it as a relationship. It's very much a relationship. It's something that you give and take. So you need to keep that in mind. First question being, you have to know who you are. And you have to know that to be able to communicate that successfully to your sponsors. So what events are you supporting? What are you trying to achieve? That needs to come through first and foremost when you chat to your sponsors. Also, who are you talking to? Who is your target market? Eventually, you want to be able to sell that target market to your potential sponsor, and it must be aligned with who they want to talk to. So that's a very key thing to understand. What age are these participants or attendees? Where do they come from? What are their interests? Those are all unique little hints that will help you to know who are the right sponsors to talk to, people that actually want to align with who you are talking to. Then it's also important to know what you want to talk about. Is it an experience? Is it whatever the event might be? You need to know what your event is about and what you want to achieve in that community that you are in. Then, what do you need to do? You actually need to go and look at your marketing assets that you have. You have some expenses that you have to cover, and it's important to look at the event in its entirety before you start planning your conversation with the event sponsors. The first thing that you obviously need is cash, and everyone, when they think of sponsorship, thinks of cash. And obviously it's very important. It makes a very big difference at the end of the event in terms of what's in the bank. And it is a very important part of sponsorship, but it's not the only part. Another part would be getting sponsorship in kind. And that is working with partners that can actually help reduce your event expenses. So working through your event, going through it from start to finish, from before the event to after the event, where are areas and potential opportunities to actually get sponsors to cover some of those costs for you. And then lastly, experiential. There are sometimes great opportunities to engage with sponsors to create additional excitement at your event, where they take the responsibility of organizing and managing some of the elements at the event, and it creates an opportunity for them to get exposure as well. So not only cash, we can always ask the question in kind, what kind of products and services can I use, as well as what opportunities can sponsors get to add value to my event. Then what can you give? So this is where you go and look at all your assets. And leading up to an event, you have obviously your event, which is your major asset. What can you leverage at this event to create value for your sponsors? But don't forget about building up to that event, and obviously the period after that event as well, which is very important. You create beautiful traffic on social media. You can create lovely content that your sponsors can also use. So I've identified those 3 periods as major areas to focus on when chatting to a potential sponsor and sharing with them what advantages you can provide to them. Then those assets can include, I just wanted to mention a couple of examples, from exposure on your website to print media, email newsletters, social media, and of course, experiential advertising or opportunities for sponsors as well. A lot of sponsors are moving towards engaging with clients and making a memorable difference. So please keep that in mind as well. So think through your event, where are these assets that I can leverage and give sponsors exposure to? Then you need to find sponsors that actually want all of these things that you've now identified. And thinking about their brand communication, who they want to talk to and what they want to say is obviously very important. Once you've done that, you'll be able to communicate to them why there is value in investing in your event. And when doing that, you kind of get an idea of how you can group assets into packages which you can then present to the sponsor. You might ask, well, where do I get these sponsors? It can be as simple as Googling a company that you think might be interested in speaking to the people that you are hosting at your event, or it could be through networking, getting a reference. It's really open to whatever creative idea you can think of. The important thing is just to go and see as many people as possible, but try and be focused and focus your message towards them. So getting a package together where you are actually providing value that that sponsor would appreciate and would benefit from. Setting up a timeline is very important. I've realized that over the years that you must, from your event, work back in terms of how are you planning your marketing campaign, pre and post event, etc. And obviously you'd want your sponsors to be confirmed by a certain date so that you give them as much value as possible. We've seen so many times that you kind of get a sponsor just before the event and then they actually lose out on so much value. So setting up that timeline is actually very crucial and important. Then we head on to the next very basic step, and that is just to pick up the phone and make an appointment. I prefer speaking to people. I think it conveys energy better, your goals, your passions, and that comes through in a physical meeting or in a telephone conference or telephone conversation. So picking up that phone is a very important step. Just sending out loads of letters, your hit rate would be much lower, I think, than focusing on a couple of really personal interactions, because we're building a relationship, of course. So it's not a cold and calculated experience. Then in terms of private sector sponsorship, it's very important to know what your sponsors want and what they value. And I think the first thing I want to mention is that they say every snowflake is unique. And I think when it comes to private sector sponsorship, we've experienced that every sponsor has their own unique needs. And you need to chat to them. That's the most important thing. There are obviously some legal requirements, so be sure to ask them whether they need BEE certification or NPO certificates. They'll be able to tell you about the documentation that they need. They also would love feedback, so chat to them about what's important. Do they want to have attendance numbers, some beautiful images of the event, and what do they want access to? Can those assets be of benefit to them after the event as well? And yeah, finally, just remember to keep talking with them. Be sure that you make sure that you understand where and what carries value to them, and be sure to meet those expectations. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Delani. Before we head on to Philip, I think Delani has now obviously given us some insight on a fairly. That whole process is not 10 minutes long, just to warn you. Everything she said in 10 minutes doesn't happen in 10 minutes.
Nope.
You referred to a hit rate,
Yes.
obviously, because you make millions of calls and then you might get something coming your way.
Yeah.
Is that hard work?
It is hard work, but you have to be persistent. You cannot give up. So, and you mustn't let it get you down. So if one sponsor gives you a no, it doesn't mean that someone else won't. And that sometimes becomes a process that you actually take a couple of years to get into, to align with the right sponsors. And I think the major thing is not giving up. You have to be relentless. That's actually the proper word. You must be not nagging, but in a professional way, keep reminding them why this is the opportunity that they can't miss out on.
All right, no, perfect. I think I'm going to put you on the spot just now
Yes.
for one last time and just quickly ask you,
Go for it.
a lot of these sponsors, obviously, you referred to three very important aspects of sponsorships. One of
Yes.
them being cash,
Yeah.
and that's what we all want. We want the moolah. But the other one is in-kind sponsorships, and a lot of times we forget about in-kind sponsorships. How much value is there in in-kind sponsorships? And is there potential in somebody that starts off as an in-kind sponsor or sponsors something in-kind and then maybe one day can become a lot more, the moolah man?
Definitely. I think in many ways that's a very natural progression. Your first question was regarding value. I think there lies a lot of value in there, and the way you identify that is literally looking at your expense budget and seeing where are elements that these sponsors can potentially cover. So therein lies loads of value, and I think that's a very practical way of just going to see how you can actually identify that. And in terms of your second question, very often that's the first step of building that relationship, because it gives you an opportunity to start building trust between both parties. So don't think because a sponsor is giving stock and items in kind that you don't treat them as well as a cash sponsor, because you never know how and where that can develop to. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. I think another important thing is always know what you want. Huh? Make sure you know what you want. So thanks, Delani.
Thank you.
This clock keeps smiling at me. I want to just turn it over, but Denver's also looking at me, so I can't. Philip, if I may, World Sport, obviously, I think 20 years of international experience. It's unbelievable to have you here, and it's always great to rub shoulders with World Sport, and thanks for the contribution to the area and region. And Neisner, I think Zandile, sitting at the back there, they know you quite well.
Yes.
But let's listen to what Philip's got to say with regards to all these little techniques and things that we need to do to make these sponsorships and partnerships happen.
I will try. Thank you for having me here. It's been a pleasure to be a part of this conference for the last 3 years. For the last 3 editions, I've been on that side. On the other hand, I've just written presentations for people, but today I get to actually speak to you guys, so thank you for giving me the opportunity, and thanks to the panel as well. So, let's see how this works. The bottom one. There we go. A little bit about myself. So I've been in this industry for the last 10 years. bulk of that being with World Sport, and I've also worked with the South African Gymnastics Federation. My role has been mainly to support business and commercial development teams to craft turnkey event communication solutions. So I'll take a bit through that a bit later. And I've worked on a lot of projects in the past 10 years, so 3 editions of the Volvo Ocean Race in Cape Town, 6 editions of the ITU Triathlon that we do in Cape Town as well. And I've also been fortunate enough to work on 2 editions of the triathlon in Abu Dhabi. So I've got a bit of international experience as well. That's a little bit of a hectic experience, but yeah, I'm very happy to have worked on those. Sorry. So a little bit about World Sport. We consider ourselves the leading kind of destination event communications agency. We've been in existence for over 20 years now, and our experience really lies in delivering destination experiences and major event spectacles. Essentially, we do that to try really get audiences to experience a destination and by proxy of the sponsors working on these events, their brands. And we offer kind of a full turnkey solution, so that essentially means we project manage the experience for the participant that comes to the event, the sponsors that engage with us, and all of the key stakeholders that are involved with the event. So we essentially use live events, tourism experiences, broadcast platforms to be able to achieve that. And that's the mix really, is really to understand with the money that you have, how can you create a great experience for all of the stakeholders involved in the event. So essentially what we do is we combine strategic thinking, real practical management expertise, and working with all of these stakeholders to achieve that. And we do that across 3 types of events: major international events, destination festivals like the Nice and Oyster Festival that we've just talked about, and really working with partners and corporates that want to create an experience for their targeted consumer. So a little bit about the major event space. So essentially the kind of stakeholder and client that you're working with here is government and people that are really looking to get socioeconomic impact, destination marketing, and social development returns from the event. So, for example, the World Cup came to South Africa, and we all know of the benefits that it achieved there. We were fortunate enough to do the FIFA Fan Fest in Cape Town over a full month. It was pretty hectic to be able to create an experience every day for that month around the World Cup, and that was for the benefit of the Cape Town people, and also on behalf of the city of Cape Town. So really understand how to work with key stakeholders to achieve that, and we're able then to work with private sector partners to be able to allow them to really showcase their brands to the people in a unique way around the common passion point of soccer. So a lot of those types of events we've done, and you can see from the range of events, the Triathlon World Cup, Volvo Ocean Race. We started our business with the President's Cup, and all of those, it's really the benefits far outweighed just how much money are we going to get after the event. The events really kind of allowed everyone to be able to share in the part of the returns. Then we've got destination festivals, and here we're talking about vibrant, content-driven lifestyle festivals designed to offer kind of a mix of immersive activities for a range of fans. So if you look at the Nice and Oyster Festival, that's essentially bundling up all of these great activities that you have in that small town in the middle of winter, in a time when you wouldn't expect people to travel to that destination. So you're able to create this mix of activities and package it and allow a range of stakeholders to be able to realize the benefit of it. The largest being, of course, the city of Nice, and that benefits greatly from it. And we do that across a number of events as well. We were fortunate to do the Al Ain Air Show in Abu Dhabi. And essentially what that was is that we've got a patch of desert in the middle of nowhere, and we're able to build a grandstand for about 8,000 people that brings the government of Abu Dhabi, the Air Force, the corporate stakeholders within that region, and they're all able to come to this and really just offer a family day for people to come and experience. But the benefits of that far outweigh that of just coming to have fun. It really was able to promote the destination. It really gives a real injection of funds to that town and the sort. And we do that across many other events as well, similar to the Stellenbosch Wine Festival. And then the last one, which talks to the key stakeholder, which is the corporate person, is creating innovative event-based engagement programs, which at the core is a lifestyle activity, and it allows the brand to be able to showcase its products or services in a unique and differentiated way for that target consumer. So we're able to do that for Old Mutual, in that they wanted to speak to a younger consumer, and we're able to then take the passion of running and music and create this thing called the Music Run. And it was a 5-kilometer course lined with speakers all along the way, and each kilometer had a different genre of music playing. The participants were able to vote for the kind of music that they wanted to play within that kilometer, and then that culminated into a festival and a concert at the end, which was headed up by DJ Euphonic. And all along the way, Old Mutual was able to speak to the consumer in a way that they weren't able to. So we're kind of able to create a new mutual from that experience. So really created something for them that allowed to engage with the consumer that they weren't generally able to communicate with. And we've done that for Pick n Pay when we created the Women's Walk for them, and we created a duathlon series for Discovery that wanted to do that in a different way. So the reason why I went through those 3 categories of events is that you see the different kind of stakeholder and sponsor that you are talking to. And the basic premise of that, you're able to craft really real solutions for them around their objectives and the KPIs that they want to achieve. And we structure our business around that. That says at the bottom, that I'm not sure if you can see, we try project management, the customer, stakeholder, and sponsor experience across everything that we do. On the beginning side of what we do is that we create a solution or create a concept that touches on those KPIs that have been set up front, depending on the type of stakeholder. And then you create a financial model around that to say, okay, this is the great idea that we have. How then are we going to be able to put this experience together with the money that we have? And then there's a base, that level that you set around that, the money that you have. And then any other additional sponsors that come on board, you use that to enhance the experience for the client or the consumer. And then around that, then you've got an event delivery structure that says, okay, here's the framework and the plan. Now here's how the structure is going to be, or this is how this idea is going to be delivered. So we've got various divisions of our company, some that specialize in the mass participation events, some that specialize in the lifestyle side of things. And under those, you've got different sections of people. You've got marketing, you've got operations, you've got production. All of those people are really tuned in to delivering that customer experience and making sure that you hit those objectives that you've set. And then the core part of our business is client service. So client service is really the people that are in touch and in tune with all of the stakeholders that you're really talking to. So our client service people really are talking to the consumer all day, every day, almost. They're at the I wouldn't want to say the beckoning call of the client, but they're the first port of call that the client speaks to. So the client won't necessarily go to your marketing person and say, hey, I want this. They speak to your client service person that then is in tune with the objectives of the project and the client, and will always have the best interest at heart in delivering what the client needs. Similar to what Luntu does. She does that for ABSA, and she makes sure that everything that she's delivering for them, she's delivering for the best interest of ABSA involved. So I just wanted to take you through one of the events that we do, which is the triathlon. And just to give you an idea of over the past 6 years of how we've actually bid for the event, how then we've worked with the stakeholders to deliver the event over the past 6 years, and to show you that sometimes those objectives change, and how do you adapt to those changes. So the triathlon has been around for 6 years now. It's an ITU event that attracts the top triathlon participants, and those triathlon elite guys are essentially competing for points to go to the Olympics. And then we're able to bring 2,000 amateur participants to participate in the event. What was difficult in the beginning is that we're only able to speak to a limited amount of people. So at maximum, you were able to speak to about 2,500 people, which was a really a sticky point that stood out for all of the stakeholders, in that, we're spending a lot of this money and we're only reaching 2,500 participants. So we then created, actually let me take you to the next slide. We really looked at the participant journey of the people that participate in this event. And we realized that we're only focusing on these people that are at this level of participation. So they could run, they could cycle, they can swim. But there's a whole range of people that have never experienced a triathlon. So we created this thing called the Retro Run. And the Retro Run is essentially, the Retro Run is essentially a themed running event. So it's 5Ks, and similar to what we did for Old Mutual, we just created it for Discovery, and the theme is retro, so it's really just a fun run for people, and they do it around the theme. And that allowed us to shoot up our KPIs from just speaking to 2,500 people to now you're speaking to over 10,000 people. And the benefits of that then becomes a lot more now. So instead of people spending X amount of money to talk to 2,500 participants, now you speak with the same amount of money, you're speaking to a larger base. And that's just because of us listening to what our stakeholders wanted. We then also created a kind of a social media campaign that spoke to trying to get people to participate in their first triathlon. So we called it the Road to ITU, and we created this 3-month campaign that said, okay, we'll get you from now you've run your retro run, why don't you then take part in this program, we'll get you to your first triathlon, or at least run and cycle for the first one. And then that just gives you an extended period to talk to your consumer. And then that gives you more value, the client gets more value and to be able to, in terms of the amount of money that they're spending. So same amount of money, but now instead of speaking to people for 2 weeks, they're speaking to them for 5 months. Same amount of money, instead of speaking to 2,500 participants, now they're speaking to 10,000. And actually speaking to more people because you've got this media campaign attached to it. On that platform, then, you're also giving the opportunity for your partners to be able to then sell their products and services. So using the event channels to then create new ways for the partner to be able to sell their products. And you've got different channels to be able to do that. So it gives you really kind of a broad-based campaign that people can engage with your event. So instead of then just the title partner and your normal stakeholders, you're able to introduce more sponsors as well that feed into this program of enhancing the experience for your participant and the people that are taking part in the event. And that is it from my side.
Well, thank you, Philip. I'm not even going to move from where I'm sitting. I'm actually enjoying everything you're saying. I think starting off with this potential sponsor, engaging, getting them to sign on the dotted line is very important, but then everything in life has a shelf life, obviously.
Correct.
So we need to ensure that we offer value, and we need to ensure that we do that throughout that period of time that we've got them as a sponsor. So, in essence, we want to take somebody like the corporate sponsor from a sponsorship to a partnership.
Correct.
And that is what you've touched briefly on, obviously, and you've done it very successfully. Looking at exactly what those KPIs are, how you align what you do. Sometimes you create something specifically for somebody that you know what they want, which is obviously strategically a very good way to go about that. But when you've got somebody like a nearly said Old Mutual, let's go ABSA. When you've got somebody like an ABSA working with you, you need to look at what they want. Their strategy changes, and I think Luntu might touch briefly on that now. Their strategy changes the whole time, and you need to ensure that you stay on top of things. And then you need to move that ship's head the whole time as well. And I think you've done it very successfully, so thanks for sharing that, Philip. Appreciate that. The dark side. The dark side of the corporate sponsorship world. Yeah, Luntu, you are the customer service director?
Yes, I'm the client service director.
Client service director.
Client service director.
And your
So
client is?
my client is ABSA.
Oh, it's an easy one.
So yes, I represent the dark side. I'm not sure why they call it dark side, because they're the ones that provide all the money. But I am not the dark side. So yeah, my name is Luntu. I'm the client service director at Playmakers. We're a sponsored marketing agency that basically provide sponsorship solutions for brands. So ABSA is a client that I work with, and they will be involved and sponsor certain properties or events, and we then sit together with ABSA and look at what their objectives are for partnering with an event in the first place, and then try to then find and derive the value from that partnership. Just a little bit on my background. So I've worked quite a long time now in the sports marketing and sponsorship agency. Before Playmakers, actually, I was working at FIFA in Zurich, so it was interesting to hear about the success of the 2010 FIFA World Cup. I actually worked on that event. I was based in Johannesburg, and I worked in the FIFA office there in Johannesburg. So I've got quite a lot of experience and knowledge around the 2010 World Cup and how that event was delivered. After the World Cup, I was fortunate enough to be offered a job in Zurich, so I lived and worked there at FIFA at the head office for 6 years, and then came back 2 years ago and joined Playmakers. Just some of the clients that we work with at Playmakers. So I look after specific at ABSA, but we work with some of the big corporates in South Africa and across a range of sporting events. So cricket we're involved in rugby, we're involved in some lifestyle events as well, like the Sun Met with Shivers and GH Mum. We work with Land Rover and Jaguar actually on the Simola Motor Hill Climb, and with Adidas on some of the events that they do locally. We also work with Coca-Cola, who do a lot of local events, and we also have worked with them on some international events as well. So we supported them with the FIFA World Cup Trophy Tour, which they did here locally. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the role of sponsorship from a corporate point of view. So Philip and Delaney have covered kind of like from the event organizer's point of view. So I'm talking about what a brand like ABSA is looking for when they partner with an event organizer. So ultimately, sponsorship should leverage to achieve one of two things from a brand perspective, is to change a perception or to change behavior. So to change a perception is, for example, drive awareness around a product or a new brand launch. So you might all know that ABSA last year changed their new brand, they changed their positioning. So that would be something that a sponsorship can be used as a platform for them to drive awareness of the new brand, what their new positioning is, and what their
what they now want to achieve as this new ABSA. It can also be used to build stature, credibility, trust, or reassurance. So often when a brand is changing from what they were, people need to know that, okay, the brand has changed, but I'm still dealing with the same ABSA that I was dealing with before. I still trust them. I can be reassured that my money in the bank is still going to be safe, as an example. And then the other reason for changing a perception is to build brand image and to build brand love. So people or consumers or customers actually, they interact with brands and they give their money to brands that they love, that they have an affinity with, and that they have value for. And sponsorships can be used as a platform to build that, because if I'm a huge football or soccer fan, and ABSA, as an example, sponsors soccer, which is a sport that I love, then I see the benefit for me in partnering with a brand that is involved in a property that I really love and have an affinity for. Changing behavior, which from an ABSA point of view actually is becoming more and more key, and I think it probably applies also to a lot of other corporates, because it's about the bottom line. So it's about generating commercial return on the investment that they've made. And especially for brands that are well established, like a Coca-Cola, like an ABSA, people know who these brands are, so they don't need to drive awareness. Everyone knows who ABSA is. Now, what ABSA needs to do is to say, okay, well, how do we take those sponsorship properties and start to change them actually into money in the bank? And those are that's kind of like what is key now for sponsors in terms of partnering with events or sponsoring events. It can also obviously be used for client retention, and also for building relationships with existing customers. So I've just done an example of how ABSA has done this. So how have they leveraged a sponsorship property to drive specific business objectives. So I chose Car because obviously it's a local event that happens here, and it's quite a successful event for ABSA. I mean, ABSA's been a partner with Car for 13 years. And that also demonstrates, I mean, sponsors are not going to be involved with events if they are not continually growing and demonstrating year after year how they're managing to deliver on the return on investment and the objectives that sponsors are looking for. So the partnership with ABSA and Car is basically for ABSA to demonstrate themselves in a credible way as an incubator of the arts. So that's again where, Delaney and Philip were talking about, the partnerships need to make sense. You need to understand what does the corporate looking for, what are their objectives, and how can your event help that sponsor or that partner to deliver on what those key objectives are. So ABSA also obviously, as an incubator of the arts, have other art programs which then help plug into a Car and also tell then that ABSA as an incubator of the arts kind of story. They've developed a key campaign messaging for how they demonstrate how they are an incubator of the arts through Car, and the messaging there is Kunswen, which means art wins. So art wins for Car as the event organizer. It wins for ABSA because it helps them achieve their objectives, and it also wins in terms of what Car and ABSA together do for the local community and their event. So ABSA's objectives for Car, I've just highlighted 3 that kind of demonstrate again why ABSA as a sponsor would be involved in this event. So they wanted to offer tangible benefits to ABSA card holders visiting the festival, and the purpose of that was to drive brand love. So if I'm an ABSA customer, I come to an event and I get something special at an event just because I'm an ABSA customer, and you don't get that if you're not an ABSA customer. So you're driving the brand love, and you're driving the retention strategy as well, because if I get something else at an event that I would have attended anyway, just because I bank at ABSA, it's going to probably make me more inclined to continue to bank with ABSA. They wanted to create a platform for key client engagement, so relationship building, retention, building brand love. And this is one of the points Delaney mentioned as well, is you've got to use the event as well as to retain clients, to build those relationships further, and to also build those relationships further than just the actual event that's happening. So the customers or corporates want to build long-term relationships with their key clients, and hosting them at events and things like that gives them an opportunity to provide experiences for the client that will help them retain those customers. And then lastly, which is also something that's becoming quite key for brands, as also I think mentioned in the intro, ABSA wanted to create a positive, lasting legacy for the town of Oudtshoorn. So again, consumers generally also want to engage with a brand that provides them value, but also that demonstrates their corporate social responsibility. Like, okay, so you host, you sponsor events, you're involved in this, but what are you actually giving back to either my community or a community that you operate in that is more than just about money in the bank at the end of the day? So for the tangible benefits, we created, through the agency, we created the ABSA Roy Plan, which was just basically, Oudtshoorn is very, very hot during Car. So it was just a space for ABSA clients, so you had to be an ABSA client to come in there, to be able to enjoy a coffee, a refreshment in the Cape Breed, which is part of the festival event. It was cool, you could have a coffee, we had other experiences there, like Hannes hosted a show, and you could come and participate in that. And that's then ABSA providing an additional experience to the festival, to you as an ABSA client. You were at the festival already anyway, but as an ABSA customer, you get to enjoy something different and something exclusive. As a platform for key client engagement, we had a VIP program. So this is basically the top clients that the ABSA relationship bankers would want to host. And here you create money comp buy experiences for these. Some of them are pretty high network individuals. So you've got to create something bespoke, something they're not going to get by just attending the festival. And this is something that's brought to you again by ABSA, driving brand love, driving retention, but done within the context of an event that is already existing. And then again, as a way of leaving a lasting legacy and also demonstrating themselves as an incubator of the arts, ABSA last year created the Market More installation. So this was basically to create functional art pieces around Oudtshoorn that are created by ABSA through their L'Atelier program, which is basically a program where they find up-and-coming artists across Africa. And they basically designed these art pieces which are now left behind in Oudtshoorn, and actually ABSA want to develop further through their partnership with Car on that. And that's basically, using local artisans to complete these, and instead of just being a corporate that's, plastered their logo everywhere or trying to derive only commercial value out of it, it's, what can we do for the community of Car in the art space in terms of demonstrating how we actually do value the partnership. It's not just about generating money. So, so that was just Car as an example. Another value that corporates would be looking for from partnerships with event organizers is to create spin-off activity or spin-off events to try and drive business. So I think Delaney mentioned this, is you know, you've got the main event, but you've got a target audience that you're talking to at the event. But APSA, as an example, would want to have an opportunity to speak to that target audience before the event and also after the event, to build that relationship, to derive value from that customer or from that target audience for more than just that event period. So I've just used an example of the APSA Cape Epic, which is also an event I'm sure you know of that happens in the region. So APSA have created what they call the APSA Pride. So it's a group of high net worth individuals to APSA who ride the APSA Cape Epic. I mean, if you guys know, APSA Cape Epic is it's one of the toughest mountain biking races in the world. And there's a lot of preparation and planning as a rider, as a participant in this event that you need to go through. So APSA saw that as an opportunity to actually be able to engage with these clients on a longer basis than just at the event. So they've created this group called the APSA Pride. It's formed out of key clients that are participating in the race. And it provides APSA really an opportunity to engage with these high network individuals, but also to have these individuals network with one another. So APSA is an enabler, as an example, of putting together the CEO of Mr. Price and the CEO of Barloworld, for example. You know, yes, there are other opportunities where these individuals probably can meet one another, but they're now being enabled by APSA to get together as a group behind something that they're all passionate about. You know, they need to conquer this race as one group of people, and hence the hashtag that APSA created, Conquer as One. So APSA have taken their partnership with Cape Epic and their sponsorship of that event and created an activity that they can use to talk to those key clients outside of just the APSA Cape Epic. And it starts already, the communication and engagement with these clients starts already in November, in the preparation for them to a training camp, which is actually taking place this weekend in Clarence. So this group of people come together, and APSA, as an enabler, helps them train and prepare and get ready for the race. And this group also of high net worth individuals get to bond as a group leading up to the race, and hopefully APSA helps them conquer this ginormous event as one group. So, I mean, I think there's a lot that's been mentioned about the partnerships need to be, and the relationships need to be mutually beneficial. And I just wanted to put up just a couple of things on from a corporate point of view, what a mutually beneficial relationship needs to deliver on. So it needs to deliver shared value. So that meaning, you know, there needs to be something in it for the corporate, but there also needs to be something in it for you. So a lot of corporates now, I mean, there's CSI, which is something very different to shared value. It's about partnering with somebody that whose commercial benefits or whose commercial objectives you can also meet, while also meeting your own commercial benefits, because that's also how you start to develop small businesses, grow economies and stuff, is by partnering with local suppliers, for example. You know, as an agency, when we work with APSA on events, you know, one of the key targets is also to work with local suppliers. You know, if we're in Oudtshoorn, we're not, you know, flying out supplies from Cape Town. We've got to use local people, because that's where the shared value is. You know, you're growing the economy and you're putting the money back into the community in which you're operating in. And then you know, the partnerships need to provide further leverage opportunities. You know, additional values. Additional value add. So more than just maybe what you have in the rights package, as an example. So if you've got like a list of things or assets that you're offering to the corporate, you know, what other value can be derived that's not what's written in black and white in the contract, and that's also how you start to build these long-term relationships with your corporate that's sponsoring your event. I mean, starting off at value and kind, and then going into what is the other additional value that you can provide the corporates that will sustain your relationship. And then, as Bernard mentioned, I mean, when corporates are partnering, they're looking for sustainability and growth. You know, once-off partnerships. A lot of corporates are not going to do sponsor once-off events because you know, it's not cost-effective for them. They want to go into partnerships that are going to be able to grow with them as a business as they grow, and also be able to change as their objectives as well change. I mean, APSA's been partnering with Kaka and Ka for 13 years, but last year was a huge brand change for them. And because of the partnership that they've got with Kaka and Ka, they're able to adjust their strategic approach with the Kaka and Ka to deliver on new objectives, because these will change from year to year as well. So if you've got a partner, a long-term partner, you know that you can rely on that long-term partner to be able to deliver on your objectives as you grow as a business and as you grow in the partnership. That's me.
Lintu, thank you very much. Thank you for, if I may, shed some light on what is important for sponsors and corporate sponsors. Obviously, that's why the reference was there earlier on. But it's definitely not the dark side, it's the light side, as she referred to. So thanks a lot for the unbelievable work that you've done in the industry, and the fact that you help us organizers align what the sponsors need, and obviously make it tangible and unlocking the value as well. So thank you so much for that. Appreciate that, and thanks for all the insight. Where's Johan? May I take one? Sorry? Two. I may take two. So, two short questions from the floor before we wrap up. Anybody? A lot of knowledge sitting here. Huh? I want to get off the stage. Anything? Nothing. There we go.
Sorry, thank you. Such as World Sport, for instance, if you entered a partnership with not necessarily Pick n Pay, say with the City of Knysna, and you say you'll get sponsors, is it acceptable for you to take a 20 or 30% commission on that sponsorship, or what is the sort of standard for that?
Well, it's a tricky one. Usually the scope of work should be defined upfront in terms of what you want delivered out of that, should I say, the agreement. So if you're going to go out to get sponsors and the scope is just securing the sponsor, then there should be a relative percentage of what that should be. If the scope is going to extend to say, okay, you're going to secure the sponsor and then manage the rights and benefits that have been promised, then the fee increases up until a certain threshold that all parties should agree on. So that's the approach that we always take as World Sport, is that there is an industry standard, but we always work with the stakeholder to really understand what do they want to achieve out of it, and how can we both work together to ensure that, you know, we deliver against that and make sure that everyone's happy with what's been agreed.
All right. One more question here, Johan, in front.
Okay, thank you so much. I would like to ask a question from Uluntu. First of all, my name is Oliver Mapukane. I'm from Knysna. My question is playmakers, if we have a proposal or a business plan that its objectives and vision is in line with one of your clients, maybe for instance, you've mentioned KFC, Shivas, and Adidas. Like, I'm doing the Color Fund run, so I would like to have like a brand that will like empower like Adidas. So if my proposal is in line with the objectives of the ABSA, can you guys assist in terms of connecting us with Adidas?
Yes, yes, we can. I mean, the connection, yes, we can make, but then it obviously also always depends on what Adidas or KFC is involved in already. You know, do they already have a running event that meets their objectives and their targets? Then it'll be based on you know what you can agree with them. But if they see value in the proposal and in partnering with you on that event, then it's definitely something that you know that they can make happen. But it just, you know, as was mentioned earlier, obviously marketing budgets and all these kind of things are quite tight now. So corporates are, you know, they're not, you know, marketing departments are not able to always just sponsor all kinds of events. You know, it has to really talk to what they're trying to achieve, their objectives, and to look at whether they are not already achieving that through a similar event that they have. Yeah, but we can chat afterwards. I'll give you some advice.
All right, thanks, Lunto. I think we'll have to wrap up, unfortunately. But as Lunto said, now please, these guys are here the whole day. If you want to ask questions, have a chat, please feel free to do so. That's why we are here. At the end of the day, that's why we're here to make sure that we can assist and help each other. And we've just touched a very important point that when we don't know the answers and we don't know where to go and where to ask and how to ask, there's a lot of people and role players, especially in this room, that can assist us. So let's take hands and do that. So I want to end off by saying thanks to the panelists and thank you for sharing. And I think it's been really fruitful. I've learned a lot. You know, you referred to 2,000 people being very small event. In my neck of the woods, there's a massive event. So lots of respect and thanks for the hard work and thanks for all the knowledge that you've shared, Lunto, Delani, and Philip. And yeah, hopefully we can share some more during the day. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.